Hi everyone. Thanks so much for checking out my channel, and thanks especially for checking out this video. I recently had the chance to watch the latest Steven Spielberg movie, Disclosure Day, and I wanted to get this reaction out sooner, but I haven't really had the chance. But that's okay, because this is really going to be a broader theological discussion about what it would be like if we found life elsewhere other than Earth. How would that affect our experience of theology and also our understanding of philosophy? The reactions to the film have been mixed, but this isn't really a movie review so much as a continuation of a discussion that the movie starts. I do personally think that this is a thoughtful film at its core, and it asks questions that are theological, cosmological, and philosophical all at the same time. So even if the movie Disclosure Day is flawed, that's something that we don't do often enough. So here's the question that I'm going to be talking about today. If we found out tomorrow that we're not alone in the universe, how would that affect our understanding of God? Now, most non-believers, especially the confident ones, would argue that this would derail our theological pursuits. But I don't personally think that's the case, and I'm going to tell you why. And then shortly after that, we're going to get much more broad in our scope. But we're going to start by talking about two questions. Now, one is quite frightening. What if we're not alone in the universe? But the other question is much more frightening. What if we are alone? Let's start with Blaise Pascal. He was one of the most insightful scientists and mathematicians of his time, or really any time. And he once said that the thing that frightens him most about the universe is the eternal silence. I really sat with that insight for a while. Think about what he was weighing. We can look around in billions of light years, in every direction, and as we call out into the darkness, the silence is the only thing that replies. That's an ominous thought. If the universe is vast, then we each represent a tiny, infinitesimal fraction of existence. But if the universe is infinite, then that percentage for us, what we represent, the space and the matter that we occupy, is precisely zero. The bigger the universe is, the smaller we become by comparison. Spielberg was interviewed about this movie, and he asked an interesting question. Is God the God of this one planet? Or is God the Lord over every possible world where consciousness exists? It's a good question. Now, it doesn't shine as brightly as it might in this movie, but that's okay because we're going to expand on that discussion. And by the way, I've said this up front and plainly. I think that there's probably a God, but I'm not certain. If you've watched this channel for a while, you already know that. This is me thinking through what cosmological discoveries would actually do to the question in either direction. But let's talk about why we might go from conjecturing about these questions to actually finding an answer, and why we might be able to do that in our lifetime. Now, this might be the most surprising thing that I'm going to say in this video, but I think that in our lifetime, we might actually have a real disclosure way in a very specific sense. Now, I'm not talking about UFOs or UAPs. I'm talking about the science of searching the cosmos. For most of human history, asking about life on other planets was pure speculation. But now, we have telescopes that evaluate the atmosphere on planets which are trillions of miles away from us. When a planet traverses another star, the light from that star passes briefly through the clouds of gas that swirl in that planet's atmosphere, and we can study what happens to starlight as it passes through the atmosphere of exoplanets. Now, if you haven't heard about this fascinating technology, it's really one of the most stunning achievements of humanity. Imagine shining a light across the wings of a butterfly in New York City and trying to determine what the color of those wings are in Los Angeles. That's roughly the scale of what we're doing. A couple of years ago, a team using the James Webb Telescope reported a possible fingerprint of a molecule called dimethyl sulfide in the atmosphere of a planet called K2-18b. On Earth, that molecule is made almost entirely by living things. And the headlines ran with the discovery. Some people called it the first whiff of alien life. But then scientists looked a little further. Researchers showed that the same molecule can form with no life at all, just from ultraviolet light hitting the right chemistry. It even turned up on a comet, which essentially proves that lifeless processes can produce the same chemicals. Now, that's not a disappointment, though. It's a beautiful journey of discovery. There is an important lesson here. Calibrated uncertainty helped us to be critical rather than excessively jubilant in our discovery. The most important lesson, even more than marveling at being able to see a tiny molecule from across the galaxy, is that we should always be humble, because no matter how smart we think we are, there's always more to learn. We're going to keep looking, but as we look further, it's very reasonable to think that one day we'll find a real biomarker of life. That would mean that at least in one sense, we aren't really as alone as we sometimes feel. Our instruments get sharper every year, and it's genuinely possible that some of us will live to see the first solid signs of life beyond Earth. We might be the generation that hears a whisper in Pascal's silence. Now we're going to get back to the more strictly theological considerations, but there's one more important observation here, that there is actually a clock that's running. There's an end to the epoch of what we'll be able to see in the universe. Even now, the universe seems to be expanding faster and faster. That's called dark energy, but it comes with a cost that we often don't acknowledge. Right now, even as I'm saying this, the distant galaxies are moving so quickly away from us that they're accelerating past the speed of light beyond the rim of the observable universe. Right now, the expansion of the universe beyond the speed of light means that planets, stars, and even galaxies are passing out of our field of view forever. For me, there's something that's even more isolating than the silence of the universe. It's that the event horizon of what we can observe is carrying the great majority of galaxies that we can see right now permanently out of our field of view and into the darkness. In roughly 100 billion years, the expansion of the universe will have carried every other galaxy over the horizon. Our own Milky Way will have merged at that point with the Andromeda galaxy into a single island of stars. But at that point, in the far future, we'll look past our galaxy and we'll see nothing but darkness. That galaxy, sometimes called Andromeda, is going to be huge. But if a civilization exists in that far-flung future, they'll think that they're alone on an island galaxy in an ocean of blackness. So we don't have forever. The observable universe is slowly but surely disappearing, even as we're gaining the ability to look further out into the cosmos to take it all in. We live in a very special time, and it's such a slim, special window of time, in part because we can see so much and so far into the past and into the future. If there is a God, and if God is omniscient, then that means that God does want us to be alive at this very special time in the history of the universe. Now, that's a lot to take in, but let's get back to the theology. Fascinatingly, before the 20th century, we humans thought that the entire universe was just the Milky Way. It was only about 100 years ago that we discovered that other galaxies actually exist. But atheism has actually been around for much longer than that. For a long time, the fashionable scientific line was that life, our life, is a fluke, a 1 in a trillion accident on a lucky rock in a universe that kills it everywhere else. And the lesson people drew was this: see, we're an accident. Nobody's home. The universe doesn't care. Then the science shifted. As we discovered more of the universe and saw signs of similar chemistry all around us, we conjectured that the cosmos might be full of life, with chemistry tipping toward it wherever it can. And the lesson people drew was the exact opposite, with the exact same confidence. See, we're nothing special, just one address out of billions. Now, C.S. Lewis noted this conundrum. A lonely universe disproves God. A crowded universe disproves God. Heads I win, tails you lose. When you can run the same conclusion from a fact and its opposite, that's a tell. It means the conclusion came first, and the evidence got recruited afterward. Right now, we're in the epoch of looking around at a silent and lifeless universe. But silence isn't the absence of meaning. It's the absence of confirmation. Even though we equate those two words constantly, they aren't really the same thing. Now, here's the next question, which I almost never hear anyone ask. Would an alien civilization have a religion? There's something called the cosmological principle. It holds that the universe should be roughly the same no matter where we look. The laws of physics don't live in pockets in the cosmos. They exist everywhere. That means that the structures and interactions that form from those laws should hold everywhere in the universe. If physics is the same everywhere, and chemistry is built on physics, and biology is built on chemistry, and psychology is built on biology, and sociology is built on individual cognition, then we should predict that other civilizations would repeat some of the motifs that we've created in our world. We're driven to search outwardly into the universe and inwardly towards our own spiritual natures, and aliens ought to have similar proclivities. But if aliens existed, what would their theology look like? Science actually has built a field called astrobiology. It's a field where we ask what aliens would look like and how their bodies would function. But we don't think about how they would feel. How would they look at the universe? What would transcendence look like for them? Would they wonder about their place in reality? Would they fear death? There's no science of what another mind would worship or fear or hope for after it dies. We can model the metabolism, but we have nothing for the soul. What if alien life is based on very different looking biology because it formed around a red dwarf rather than a main sequence star like our sun? Picture a mind that evolved with no death like ours, or no separate self the way we consider ourselves. Would it reach for something divine, or is the whole category of the sacred a human dialect that doesn't translate one solar system over? The next extrapolation of Pascal's silence came in the 1950s with physicist Enrico Fermi. One day he was having lunch with friends and asked a question that still hasn't gone away. If the cosmological principle exists, then physics should give rise to life throughout the universe. On a cosmological timescale, it's actually quite theoretically feasible to reach other planets. But if the universe should be full of life, then where is everybody? The galaxy is old enough that by now someone should have crossed it over, but we look around and we hear nothing. That's the Fermi paradox. And one of the cleanest answers to the Fermi paradox that anyone has offered comes down to 3 words. If the galaxy really is silent, then we are one of 3 things: rare, first, or doomed. Rare means the steps to get a mind like ours are so unlikely that we may be close to alone, and the silence is just the truth. First means we got here early, and that we are among the very first minds the universe has produced, and the silence is because the party essentially hasn't started yet. Doomed means intelligence reliably destroys itself before it can reach anyone, and the silence is actually a warning. Now here's why this matters for us. 2 of those 3 possibilities, rare and first, both say that we might be something special, we might be precious, not the center of the universe in the old medieval sense, something stranger. If we are early or rare, then there is something that is non-cosmological about our existence. Minds, human ones like ours, are very hard to make. Many scientists have reason to believe that we are either special or early by the very fact that we exist. In a way, Carl Sagan saw this possibility. He said that we exist to be a window for the cosmos to know itself. Now that's a powerful statement even if you're an atheist, as Sagan himself was. His idea was that minds are hard to produce, and that we are either among the first or among the few. In a very special window of time and space, the cosmos created a lens through which it could see itself, and you are that lens. If there's an alien civilization, then it must share the same understanding of its own nature, and it would probably muse about the possibility that intelligent minds are either rare in the universe or at least rare in this moment in time. By the way, before we move on to the next section, let's acknowledge one more thing. Physicists can describe these realities, but they can't really tell us what they mean. You're the one who gets to decide for yourself what this all means. Does the Fermi paradox mean that we're special, or does it mean that we're short-lived and doomed? Or is nothing special? Is everything just a brute fact? Science can only lay out facts. Weighing those facts philosophically, spiritually, theologically, that's something that you have to do for yourselves. There's no answer in the back of the book. It's just a long essay, and for now at least, you're the only one who gets to grade it. But we're all part of the same dot, in the same vast universal darkness. If you see this as proof that we matter, proof that we're loved, and that we have a purpose, that's okay. If you don't, that's okay too. There's no easy answers here, just questions as big as the whole night sky. Some of you know that I'm a professor. Well, here's where I get to give you some homework. There are a few assignments that I have for all of you. First, look at the night sky. Go outside, take a while, and look at a star. Try to pick one out. And then try to figure out which one you're looking at. Then after that, try to figure out how far away it is. Odds are you'll end up with a very large number. Next, look at a tree. Think about what it would be like if a single leaf woke up and acknowledged its own reality. Think about being one leaf among hundreds in a single tree. Then think about being one leaf among thousands in a forest. Then think about the other galaxies. We've seen already hundreds of billions, and there may in fact be trillions more. One more thing. Find something beautiful. A house, a street sign, a sunset. I think that beauty is all around us. That doesn't necessarily mean that it was made for you to appreciate it. I know that there are a lot of atheists who watch this channel, but if there is a God, and if God is omniscient, then think about this. God knew at the beginning of time that you would be standing right there, looking around and seeing something beautiful. Now let's bring it all together with one final observation. The leaves will never wake up. They'll never realize that they're made of protons, neutrons, and electrons. They'll never see that they're the same matter that fills the universe and creates rivers and oceans and galactic superclusters. As far as we know, there's only one structure in the entire universe that understands that there's a universe of astronomy around us and a universe of subatomic reality within us. It doesn't have to move you to a theological conclusion, but it should move you. It's only a tiny sliver of matter that gets to understand its own nature as matter, that gets to understand that its universe is that same matter. As an individual, you have the widest breadth of understanding. You're part of that tiny sliver of matter that gets to experience that distinctive level of awareness. Now, one last thought before I sign off. We're talking about a lot of structures that are cosmic and cognitive. Almost all of these scales are really too huge to imagine. We've talked about life on other planets. What are the odds that this universe would exist? What are the odds that it holds life? What are the odds that we would get the chance to perceive ourselves? And when we stack these layers of reality, there is a strange and paradoxical sharpness. Point a telescope outward, and life looks impossible. Too rare, too lucky, too many things that had to go right. Turn a microscope onto life itself, and it looks inevitable. Physics inevitably gives rise to chemistry, which inevitably gives rise to biology, and an astronomically long syllogism of science and nature that produces human thought as a necessary outcome. We are all of us, all at once at the same time, infinitesimally improbable and ultimately inevitable. And we're gaining clarity into the theological questions and answers the more that we look. Our telescopes are seeing structures that are hugely vast, and our microscopes are seeing structures that are incomprehensibly tiny. And in the middle, here we are. The point is this. We live in a time of discourse where we think of science and religion as being at odds with each other, but it wasn't always that way. And it won't be that way for the entirety of the future. If you're a theologist, don't rush to deny science. It shows us where we are on the cosmological ladder. If you're a scientist, don't impugn theology excessively. Our minds are made to not only hold facts, but also to gain comprehension. You may not realize it, but that's a profoundly human imperative. Well, we've hopscotched around a lot of very disparate topics, but I had a lot of fun writing the script for this video. And I've told you a lot about what I think, but what I really want to know more about is what you all think. Do you think we're alone in the universe? Do you think we'll ever find life on other planets? If we do, what does that mean? I'd love to know your insights on all of these questions. Now, if you got something out of this video, please click the like button. Please subscribe to the channel. That really does help us out. And let's make this be the start of a conversation, so please put your thoughts in the comment section. And don't forget to click the bell icon for notifications so that you don't miss out on future videos. Now, I gave you a lot of homework, and I'm asking even more from all of you, which is to support the channel, but I want to ask something else from each and every one of you. And that's that I hope that you all have a really wonderful day.